Behind the cameras, behind the glory and fortune, some have committed the irreparable. Murders, abuse, fraud. Their crimes have landed them straight behind bars. Each story is a warning. A single decision can destroy a career, a family, a life. Even today, some of these actors are serving their sentences, while others try to rebuild, yet all forever carry the mark of their downfall. In this video, you will discover stars whose lives took a tragic turn, celebrities who went from glory to obscurity, from luxury to prison bars. And believe me, some of these stories are so shocking that it will be hard to believe they actually happened. Stay with us until the end, because each story is more incredible than the last, and you will never see these faces the same way again. Let's begin. Ryan Grantham. Ryan Grantham seemed to be a young prodigy of Canadian cinema. Born in 2000, he was only 19 when he began appearing in popular series like Riverdale. At that age, his future looked bright. Leading roles, public recognition, and a career that was just beginning. Fans saw him as a rising star of the small screen, carefree and ready to conquer Hollywood. But in 2020, everything collapsed in a tragic turn. At 20 years old, Ryan committed the unthinkable. He murdered his own mother. The circumstances of this crime remain shocking, an isolated act driven by personal struggles that shattered a life once destined for glory. His arrest marked the end of his meteoric rise and left the public in disbelief. In 2022, at the age of 22, he was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 45 years. Today, Ryan Grantham is 23 and remains behind bars. His story, tragic and dramatic, shows how a single reckless act can destroy a promising youth and an entire future. R. Kelly. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, R. Kelly, at 30 years old, was the voice that set the world on fire. With hits like I Believe I Can Fly, he dominated the charts, won awards, and was adored by millions of fans. His career in music and film opened every door. Money, fame, universal admiration. Everything seemed perfect. But behind this dazzling success, a terrible truth was hidden. R. Kelly abused his power to manipulate and exploit young women for decades. Rumors had circulated since the 2000s, but it wasn't until 2019 that justice took action following explosive media revelations. Found guilty of sex trafficking, child pornography, and the exploitation of minors, he was sentenced in 2022 to 30 years in prison. R. Kelly was 55 years old at the time of his sentencing. Today, still behind bars, he has already served 3 years of his sentence. From global superstar to prisoner, his story is shocking. Yesterday's glory destroyed by his crimes. A bitter lesson about power and corruption. Michael Jace. Michael Jace, born in 1977, is an American actor best known for his intense role in the series The Shield during the 2000s. At 37, he seemed to have it all. Fame, the respect of his peers, a loyal audience, and a flourishing future. His acting was praised, and his character inspired both admiration and fascination. But in 2014, a domestic dispute turned into horror. Michael Jace killed his wife. The details of the scene shocked the media and the public. A violent, irreversible act that transformed an admired man into a criminal. The justice system sentenced him to 40 years in prison for voluntary manslaughter, bringing a brutal end to both his career and his freedom. Today, at 48 years old, Michael Jace remains incarcerated. His dramatic downfall illustrates how a single moment of violence can destroy years of work, talent, and glory, leaving behind a once respected name now forever tied to tragedy. Danny Masterson. Imagine Hollywood in the late 1990s. Bright studios, stars smiling on the red carpet, and a young actor named Danny Masterson, 22 years old, becoming the darling of television audiences thanks to That 70s Show. Charismatic, funny, carefree, he seemed destined for a brilliant, cloudless career. Fans admired him for his humor and talent, and Danny moved easily within Hollywood's inner circle of stars. But behind the laughter and the cameras, a darker reality was hidden. Several women began to report sexual assaults committed by Masterson as early as the early 2000s. For years, these accusations were ignored or silenced. Then, in 2017, with the rise of #MeToo, the truth erupted. The justice system investigated, and in 2023, at the age of 47, Danny Masterson was sentenced to 30 years in prison for raping multiple victims. Today, still behind bars in California, he has already served 2 years of his sentence. A dramatic fall from the height of stardom to a cold prison cell, leaving behind the Hollywood dream that once seemed immortal. Joe Exotic. In the 2000s, Joe Exotic, at 57 years old, embodied the archetype of America's extravagant personality. A big cat breeder, singer, showman, and the face of his animal park in Oklahoma. Everything seemed fascinating and colorful, and thanks to the Tiger King series released in 2020, he became a global celebrity overnight. But behind this flamboyant facade lurked the shadow of criminality. Joe Exotic plotted the murder of his rival, Carol Baskin, while also breaking laws on wildlife trafficking and animal cruelty. Federal authorities stepped in, and in 2019, at the age of 56, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Today, at 62 years old, Joe Exotic remains incarcerated, his freedom taken away by his dangerous and obsessive choices. From eccentric adored star to prisoner, his story is a mix of madness, scandal, and a spectacular downfall that has captivated the world. Zach Avery. Zach Avery, born in 1987, was a young American actor with a promising future. By the late 2000s, he was landing small roles and seemed ready to conquer Hollywood. At 30 years old, his charisma and ambition suggested a long and brilliant career ahead. But behind the actor's smile hid a sinister reality. Zach Avery orchestrated a massive financial fraud, a Ponzi-style scheme, swindling investors out of more than $227 million. The victims, numerous and devastated, lost all hope, and Avery's downfall was both rapid and spectacular. In 2023, at the age of 36, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for fraud and money laundering. Today, still behind bars, Zach Avery has already served a few years of his sentence. His story illustrates how greed and illegal choices can destroy a promising career and turn a life full of potential into scandal and disaster. Joseph "Joe" Sun. Joseph Sun, born in 1963, was a Korean-American actor and martial artist, known for his roles in action films such as Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. By the age of 40, he seemed to have found his place in Hollywood, recognized for his skills and mastery of martial arts. But behind the image of a strong man hid a dangerous personality. Joe Sun was accused and convicted of multiple violent sexual assaults, including gang rapes and crimes of extreme brutality against women. The justice system left no room for doubt. He was arrested and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, bringing a brutal end to both his career and his freedom. Today, at 62 years old, Joe Sun remains behind bars. His trajectory, from promising actor to convicted criminal, is a chilling reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that irreparable crimes can erase all glory and talent. Tory Lanez. Day star Shemuel Shua Peterson, born in 1989, is a Canadian rapper whose name exploded worldwide in the late 2000s. By the age of 30, his hits were dominating the charts, and his collaborations with international stars earned him global recognition. Charismatic and ambitious, he seemed destined for a limitless career. But in 2023, Tory Lanez's life took a drastic turn. Following a shooting incident involving another artist, he was arrested and found guilty of violent crimes. The scene of the incident, his motivations, and the details of the trial created total suspense, turning the story of a star into a courtroom drama. At 34, he was sentenced to several years in prison. Today, at 36 years old, Tory Lanez remains incarcerated. His dramatic downfall is a reminder that even a flourishing career, celebrated by millions, can be destroyed by a single moment of violence and reckless decisions. Amy Locane. Amy Locane, born in 1967, is an American actress who rose to fame in the 1990s thanks to films like Cry Baby. At 23, she embodied the bright future of Hollywood, beauty, talent, and a promising career. Studios and audiences followed her with admiration, and everything seemed to be going her way. But in 2018, her life took a tragic turn. Driving under the influence of alcohol, Amy Locane caused a fatal accident that claimed the life of an innocent person. Justice acted quickly, and she was sentenced to prison for reckless driving, resulting in death. Her career and freedom collapsed overnight. Today, at 56 years old, Amy Locane is free after serving her sentence. Her dramatic story is a reminder that even the most promising lives can be shattered by a single mistake, and that fame never exempts anyone from responsibility for their actions. These shattered destinies remind us of an unyielding truth. Fame does not protect anyone from the consequences of their actions. Behind the cameras, behind the glory and fortune, some have committed the irreparable. Murders, abuse, fraud. Their crimes have landed them straight behind bars. Each story is a warning. A single decision can destroy a career, a family, a life. Even today, some of these actors are serving their sentences, while others try to rebuild, yet all forever carry the mark of their downfall. And you, among these stories, which one shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to discover more hidden truths behind the glitter of Hollywood.